Very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum. We are live on Radio 1 FM 90. We're also coming to you via our website, which is www.radio1fm90.com. On that website, we have an icon with the word Listen Live. So you click on that icon, you should be able to listen to us from anywhere across this globe. Now, Radio 1 is also live on the different radio listening apps: TuneIn, AfroMobile, your TV channel, Radio Garden, and Stream Afrique. Now, those can be obtained from the Google Store of your smartphone. You download, you look for Radio 1 FM 90, and as long as you have an internet connection, you'll be able to listen to us. The other option, we are also on DSTV, and our audio channel there is 897. My name is Kenneth Lukwagandason, your host, and today we'll be looking at how we can tackle the challenge of trafficking in persons. Now, trafficking in persons remains one of the complex crimes that continues to bother our country, with reports indicating that annually hundreds, if not thousands, are trafficked within or outside the country. Now, today, Uganda joined the rest of the world to commemorate the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. Now, this is always an opportunity to understand the gravity of this menace, to share experiences, to evaluate policy interventions, and to draw strategies for the future. Now, available statistics show that in Uganda, women and children are the main targets of traffickers, and that they are exploited in many different ways. Now, the current trend of externalization of labor is an emerging challenge, as many people are duped into believing that they have concrete job opportunities abroad, only to end up in harm's way. So what is the situation like in Uganda when it comes to trafficking in persons? What are the push factors? How can one detect danger? What are the security agencies and other stakeholders doing to address this matter? We also want to hear your experience. Please share with us using our WhatsApp line, which is 0703 090 090. My guest in studio this evening, Superintendent of Police Nusra Kemigisha, Trafficking in Person Liaison Officer in the Uganda Police Force for the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us, Fande Kemigisha.
Good evening.
Also in studio, Mr. Damon Wamara, Executive Director, Uganda Child Rights NGO Network, members of the Uganda Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Damon Wamara.
Good evening, Kenneth.
All right, let's begin by understanding what the situation is like in Uganda, but it would be better to begin with a definition of trafficking in persons. What exactly are we talking about when we hear about trafficking in persons? Afande, anyone can jump in.
Thank you, Kenneth, for that question. When we talk about trafficking in persons, we are referring to the activity of recruiting, the activity of transporting, the activity of onboarding, harboring persons through cohesion, through fraud, through deceptiveness, through abuse of office, through abuse of power, with the purpose and the intention to exploit the person. And the forms of exploitation include forced begging in Uganda. It includes forced labor or child labor for the cases of those who are children in the sugarcane plantations and all these other places, sexual exploitation, and all the other forms of exploitation that exist. That is the definition as per the Prevention of Trafficking in Persons Act 2009. And that gives us a clarity on how Uganda identifies the crime of trafficking in persons. And it is also a crime that has penalties, with one of the harshest penalties, where you even would get the death sentence for cases where it is aggravated trafficking in persons.
All right. Having understood the definition, so what is the situation like? Do you have any statistics today? As you commemorated, you must have been able to share, to look at the gravity of the situation and the challenges that we face. So what can you tell the listeners about the situation, looking at the statistics that you have?
Thank you, Kenneth. The statistics that we have are still, although we do have some figures and we do have some recordings from the Uganda Police, from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, from some of the civil societies working around this issue, the statistics are not giving us the actual statistics that we have in our country, that present and even globally. Let me start from the global level. The global level, it is estimated that over 3 million people are taken through this crime, are victims or are survivors, are victims, first of all, they are victims of this crime and have been subjected to some form of exploitation and have been taken advantage of. Of the 3 million, over 50% of these 3 million persons in the whole world are children. When we come to the Ugandan statistics, we are seeing that in the last year, 2023, we first of all recorded in Uganda the cases that actually made it to police, to be reported at police, the cases that made it to be reported at any point of reporting that is recognized by the government here, including Afande Nusura, is that we had 1,200 persons who reported cases, who have received a form of support from government around the issue of trafficking in persons. And in 2023, the number goes to 1,010 persons who have received. Again, standing out is that of those, the highest percentage are still children who are victims of trafficking in persons. So these numbers, although we are saying 1,000, although we are saying 100, one is already too many for us to deal with. And so the statistics just show us that the crime is still in existence in the country and is still being taken advantage of by the perpetrators. And we still have people who are falling victims of being trafficked in Uganda.
All right, let's hear from the police officer. You are the ones who actually get some of these reported cases, but also most importantly, you liaise with the DPP for purposes of prosecution. What are you seeing as the police people when it comes to this issue of trafficking in person?
Yeah, thank you, Kenneth. When it comes to issues of trafficking in persons, trafficking has been there, I think, as old as mankind. Yeah, only that the publicity around it and the way of identifying these cases was the big issue, and maybe even the reporting. So, because you will hear that there used to be no trafficking, how comes people now are being trafficked? But when you look at human trafficking, it has always been there. But when like we started externalizing labor to the Gulf, and people like on TV, on social media. Here I'm trapped. So people will be like, girls are being trafficked. So people thought that trafficking means girls going to the Middle East or exiting the country. But when you really understand, or when you analyze the definition of the TIP Act, you will find that the biggest percentage, if we have 100%, you'll find that 70% of the cases are domestic trafficking.
Meaning?
Meaning that where you find that sexual exploitation, you will find that when you look at the crime statistics, you will find that sexual offenses will always be among the cases that are contributing the biggest percentage. And when you analyze these cases, you'll find that these cases qualify to be cases of human trafficking. You'll find that the child has been transported, by a trafficker, moved to an area, harbored in a certain home, or coerced or forced into then sexually exploited. Like Damon put it, that for a case to constitute to be a case of trafficking, we must have the 3 elements. That is the act, how it has been done. That act means recruiting, transporting, and all that. Then the means. What means have been used? Someone can be coerced, can be deceived, then for what purpose? And that is what brings it all for a case to be complete: exploitation. So for a case to be considered a case of trafficking, it must be aiming at exploiting someone. So it is a process of taking someone into exploitation. How do you have this domestic trafficking? We are seeing, actually, when you analyze it, that you will find that potentially all of us are suspects of trafficking. You'll find that we have maids in home, whom even we don't know who their parents are. Here in Uganda, for a child to work out of the home setting must be 16 years and above. But you'll find someone is employing a child of 12 years to babysit. This child is supposed to be in school. So in other words, you're being harmful to this child's growth. He's supposed to be in school, for you, he's there babysitting. In the meantime, you're not paying, or you're even beating this child, you're abusing her. So initially, what we are saying that the trend has changed, or people now are better to recognize because of the sensitization. Initially, when this case would come to police, would file either child abuse or assault. This one has assaulted a maid. But forget that this is a complete case of trafficking. That's why we're saying that trafficking has been there. Maids in our homes, the way we treat them, like men. You bring a maid to do work, then you sexually exploit. So when we land on you and you have evidence that you really forced this maid of yours, however much is an adult, we will take you for trafficking because you recruited this person, brought her to your home. Then the means would be deception. You lied to her. You're coming to do house chores. Now you're sexually exploiting this maid. So you find that all these cases were being reported differently, but yet there were cases of trafficking. So like the efforts the government has put around, the civil society organizations, like we're partnering with like whoever is in the same cause with us. So you can see that there's a lot of sensitization around the cases. So that's why you're seeing cases are being reported and cases are increasing, So it is not that they have not been there, but I think
cases have been there. There's a lot of awareness now.
But there's a lot of awareness, and even the reporting was differently. That's why you see someone goes out and comes back. He goes to police, I was trafficked, I need help. But initially, they would come back, be silent, nurse their wounds, let it go. But now they know that they can go to police, they can go to civil society, they can go to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and file in their complaints.
All right. Damon, I know your organization does a lot of work when it comes to children. And trafficking in person also, the victims, mainly women and children, like I earlier mentioned. But one would want to understand, what are the push factors? Why are we continuing to see this actually happening? Why are our children being trafficked? What are some of the issues that members of the public need to look out? How do you detect danger in case somebody is actually interested in trafficking your child?
Well, Kenneth, the first thing that we can approach that question in form of me responding to it is, first of all, understanding that children in there, just by being children, are vulnerable. And that level of vulnerability then makes them at risk of being taken advantage of being exploited. So that's the first, not push factor, not pull factor, but that's the first fact.
They're innocent.
They're innocent. They are not aware of what is happening, and that is why even when it comes to the law, the aspect of them consenting to be exploited is not. It doesn't come into play. Yeah. Police would never ask the child, "Did you consent? Did you accept?" No, they will never ask that. For them, they will clearly. As long as there is a sign of recruitment, transportation, harboring, and there's an intent, or there is a form of exploitation, you will be prosecuted. So that's the first point. Secondly, we cannot be ostriches and put our heads in the sand. It is definitely clear that the levels of poverty are quite alarming. I'm looking at some of the statistics I have around me, and if I can just mention to you the places that where they reported the most cases, you just tell me what you think about it. Katwe, 43 cases reported there. Mubende, 27 cases reported there. Namusindwa, 23 cases. Kamwenge, 21 cases. What does that tell you, Kenneth? What is associated with many of these areas? Namusindwa, Mubende, poverty, the levels of poverty that are there. The fact that people are not having an income, and the thought pattern that children are a source of income, and by them going to work, they are bringing an income home. You then begin to see that the levels of poverty and the levels of the people, citizens not working, ends up making them ends up making them exploit children to be taken advantage of. Third, the statistics from Sauti 116, where they receive over 3,000 calls a day. 3,000 calls a day.
The children hotline.
The child helpline records that when we see the statistics, you'll find that the most cases that are reported are child neglect, child abandonment. And if you also look at the police report, these are still the same signs. It shows also the first thing that is most reported is child neglect. It is then you have the sexual exploitation that comes in and child abandonment. Those things of children being neglected, then the children start looking for their own way to fend for themselves. So you begin to see children going to the sugarcane plantations so that they can get some money to buy food, going to the coffee plantations, going to the rice plantations, coming to the streets because they're trying to fend, and the adult has failed to provide for the children, and therefore the children now are fending for themselves and are finding their survival. It is also no secret that the level of vulnerability makes the child a target for the perpetrators. Look at online exploitation. An adult can quickly know that this person wants to exploit me. But a child will not know, and the child is being convinced, I'm giving you $100, I'm giving you this, and they'll quickly turn into getting that money. So those are some of the pull factors. They talk about the poverty levels, the push factors, poverty levels, talk about the child neglect, the families abandoning their roles, parenting, talk about the just nature of them being children. The pull factors, unfortunately, Kenneth, you and I also become part of the pull factors. One, we keep on promising these children to come from the village for a better life, to take them to school. We are attracting them to come, and instead we exploit them. We are a part of the pull factor. Two, we bring the children.
Let me say people like us. You can't say you and I.
Well,
you don't have any evidence that I've ever convinced someone to bring them in town. You know, but the police officer can easily
arrest
us from here.
Well,
public confession.
I'm talking about you in the third person.
All right.
In this case, but if you're also guilty, we can talk off air, and you take. Anyway, jokes aside, you also have the taking advantage of persons' kindness on the streets because they know that we are Christians, we are Muslims, we are givers, and we are able to give. And they're taking advantage of that. And so the perpetrators will bring children, and they'll bring the most vulnerable children, those that look terrible, and to beg on the streets. And that's what we call the forced begging. 3, we also take advantage of the cheap labor. The pull factor is that children are cheap labor. The price Kenneth will accept to work to clear a plantation is not the price the young child of Junior, Kenneth Jr., will accept. Kenneth Jr. is cheaper than Kenneth Sr. And so taking advantage of that edge and the cheapness that the labor brings is also very key as a pull factor.
Talk about cheap labor. I see here in Kampala so many children vending eggs, vending bananas. And when you ask them, where do you come from? They will tell you, this is not my business. There's somebody who actually owns this business. And they will tell you, we're about 20 or so. Moving in different parts of the country. What can we do about these kind of things, Afande? What advice would you give the communities?
Kenneth, when you talk about those cases, we have registered such cases at police. A case in point, we had a case where a boy child was vending eggs, and in the evening he would remit money to the boss.
Exactly.
So if he didn't finish selling off all the eggs, this boy would be punished. He would be punished, and even they would be like, you will not be paid because you've not been able to sell all the eggs. But even the eggs that he has brought back, he would not be allowed to share. The other family, the other gentleman would eat all the eggs with the children. But remember, this one is being punished for not selling off. So when you got this boy, eventually this boy was brought to police. So we realized that even getting him from the village, he was promised education.
Yes.
They were like, let me have your children. I'm going to get them bursaries. So as we were doing family trace for the families, the parents knew that this child was in school. Yet he was seriously vending eggs. So imagine if someone has like 30 children, they are all vending eggs, you know, how much is that? Like a cost of an egg?
500 per egg.
How many are those?
There are 24 eggs.
One child told me they sell about 3 trays in a day.
Yes.
So, and it's not like...
And you can't go back home when you have not finished selling those eggs.
Yes.
There's a particular lady who is in Zambia area who I think brought such children way from Bushenyi. I have encountered a number of them selling bananas and eggs around town here, and I pick interest in asking them, where do you come from, why are you not in school? And they simply tell you, I was brought to Kampala to actually do business.
Yeah, so like as police, we are totally against it, and wherever we land on such cases, we always handle them expeditiously. And you know, these people always get the biggest punishment because, like Damon says, the act even gives aggravating factors.
All right.
If you're having a child doing things that are harmful, that's why we've even got an extent of charging the parents.
All right.
Like in the recent operations, parents brought their own children from Karamoja, deployed them on the street. It is the mothers who are collecting the money, but they are exposing these children to accidents. The children are not in schools. The living conditions, like they kind of mix with all adults somewhere. Yeah. So we had to arrest these mothers, charge them to court, even arrest the people who were harboring them.
But they're still on the streets.
Yeah, but they have reduced. Kenneth, give us a credit.
Why do we still see them around here? What happens?
Like, you know, they will also be beating security. They're also like intelligence officers. But I assure you, with time you will not see any child. I think you can give us a list. We have reduced the numbers. How do you see the numbers than before?
You have. But,
and we are aiming at 0 numbers.
You have reduced them here in the main center of the city. But when you go to the suburbs, they are still there.
So like when you look at the vulnerability.
If you go around Makerere right now, near the traffic lights at Sir Apollo Kagwa Road, you're likely to find a number of children there who are waiting onto those cars and asking for something from the people in those cars. Yeah. So what happened, Damon? There have been campaigns to take these children back to their home states.
Kenneth, before you go there, I just wanted to highlight and say that when we're talking and tackling this issue, we need to be mindful that as the police is getting smart and is trying to do their role and their job, and even as civil society engages the children and rescues those that they rescue, the traffickers are not sleeping. They are also trying to change their tactics, and the trends keep on changing. But one of the things that we do is try and analyze and understand what the situation is. One of the things that I personally have engaged Kampala City Council authority members and had conversations with a few of them is that as we are doing the district planning, are they just a matter of doing the road plan, the road and the lights will be here and this? Have they had the discussion of what are the risks and what are the factors around this? What can we do to ensure that we make the place not comfortable for situations of exploitation like they're talking about. I'll tell you, everywhere they're going to put, and this one, let me say it on radio. Everywhere they're going to put traffic lights, and I see more traffic lights are coming. I will tell you, you will realize that wherever they put traffic lights, children are there because vehicles can stop, because they can look vulnerable in front of those vehicles and they can take advantage. And that is a new trend. What has KCCA done in terms of planning to ensure that even as they do those roads, that they have consulted and found out that first of all, the children are safe around there, but secondly, that no one would take advantage of the children because the traffic light has been put there. Those are some of the simple things that we need to look at. Secondly, the children that are coming, if we do not deal with the factors at you're talking of the Karamajong. If we do not deal with the fact that the children need adequate schools, enough schools in that area to accommodate all of those children, we're going to continue seeing that number come down. And we're going to continue wanting police to respond. It is more expensive to respond than to prevent. We need to invest in prevention and avoid the children from coming. Then let police deal with those who have escaped the roadblocks and everything. But we need to deal with the prevention. Let us ensure that children are in schools. Schools are the safest place that a child can be in, and that's the longest time a child is. And we need to have more schools. Karamoja and Napak district has very few schools to accommodate all the children. We need more schools there.
All right.
For these children.
Right, Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. Topic of discussion today, we are looking at the challenge of human trafficking. What can we do as a country to actually reverse this menace that is taking root in our country? We are described by reports as a transit and...
A transit and we are ascending, a transit and a final destination.
Final destination, which means people are also being trafficked and brought into Uganda. So stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. We're going to go for a short break. When we return, we have a tough law in place, which was passed by Parliament. What is happening? Why are these laws not working? From the side of prosecution, are we seeing any results? Are people actually being prosecuted to send that tough signal to those who are likely to be perpetrators? Stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. We continue after this break.
Radio 1 FM 90.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Live on Radio 1 FM 90. Our topic of discussion today, we are looking at tackling the challenge of human trafficking or trafficking in persons in Uganda. What do we need to do as a country to be able to respond to this challenge? My guest, Superintendent of Police, Nusra Kemigisha, trafficking in person liaison officer in the Uganda Police Force for the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And Mr. Damon Wamara, Executive Director, Uganda Child Rights NGO Network, members of the Uganda Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons. Our discussion is premised on the fact that today we commemorated the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, and we are taking stock of the situation in Uganda and what actually needs to be done to move forward. Send us your messages, your comments, share with us your experiences using our WhatsApp line, which is 0703-090-090. Esther, Rico, Andrew, and the others, I can see your messages. I'll be reading them out for the panelists to actually respond. Afande Nusra, we have the law, trafficking, what so many people call Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act, which was passed, is it in 2009? If I may remember correctly, because that time I was a reporter in Parliament.
Okay.
We have this law in place. We also have all these other institutions. What are we doing in terms of prosecution? Are we sending a signal to the perpetrators that do not continue engaging in trafficking of persons?
Thank you, Kenneth. When you look at the current trend, you can see that all the cases that are being reported, and once they go through to the prosecution, you can see that we have been going steadily. We've been having an increase, we have been having an increase in the convictions and even passing tough punishments. When you look at all cases, I can talk maybe like at ICD, where you find that all the cases...
ICD, that's the International Criminal Division of the High Court. Okay.
Yes, that is where we are having the cases of human trafficking. Some, not all, but those that are key or that are for public interest, or where you find that maybe the children are many, like those cases.
The gravity of the case.
You find that all the cases that have been presented to court for this year, we've not had a single dismissal. We've had only conviction. That is almost
successful
100%.
prosecution.
Yes.
Okay. So
you find like out of the older cases which are there, we've not had a single dismissal, and we have had only convictions. And the punishments which are being given, by the way, are deterrent in nature. Yeah, because we've gotten natural life, We've gotten people who are getting like 50 years and above. That never used to happen. We've had people who are being charged with child sacrifice. Initially, we have cases where you find that you rescue a child before she's sacrificed. That case is not murder. you know. But the danger, the damage that has been left to this child. So that is why I'm saying that the law is working, because in that circumstance, we use the PTIP Act, where we charge them with where we charge them with aggravated trafficking in children, because the child was being involved in a ritual activity. So in those cases, they are grave in nature, that when you're convicted, you get natural life. So we are using the PTIP Act to handle such cases, because initially they will be like kidnap, because the child has not died. You know, we've recovered children in the shrine when they have not yet been killed. So where does that one fall? You know? They will be like, they have rescued, maybe it is kidnap, maybe it is abduction, but right now we use the PTIP Act and these people go for aggravated trafficking in children. So the law is really working and it is sending a signal. And that's why you see that actually now, if you were having access to Rosilla, maybe to talk to the inmates, they would tell you would rather be charged by any other offense, but not trafficking in persons. Because even once you're charged there, a lot of efforts are there. There are so many coordinated efforts around the offense, because like the PTIP Act advocates for the 4 Ps. The 4 Ps, that is protection, prosecution, prevention, and partnership. So when we are dealing with these cases, we really bring all the 4 Ps as listed in the PTIP Act into practice, where we have our victims all protected. Okay, not all, but the biggest percentage, we ensure that they have protection, and if there are any threats, we ensure that we remove the barriers. So we ensure that they are protected. We partner with like other people who are in the same fight with us, like the civil society, who will come in to be, okay, what was the push factor? This child was trafficked because he was promised education. So can we provide the education? You know? So meaning that this child, once he's getting the education for free, yet the other side was getting it because we're being sexually exploited by the sponsor, it means this child is going to cooperate. So even if you have all it takes, it means the efforts will be so strong. Even if you try to compromise, because they always face challenges also in these cases, compromises come in later, either from the side of the victim or from the parents or from whichever. But when we have the 4 Ps strong, we ensure that we will always get convictions in these cases.
Right.
Demon.
We've been there. do you feel the law is doing what it's supposed to do? And also, what are some of the recommendations you would want to put forward to strengthen the fight against trafficking in persons?
The law so far has proved to work, and ever since we saw, I think for the last 4 years, we have seen police work very closely with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and we have had better cases, and court has not gotten any good reason to dismiss many of the cases. We have had more wins than losses, as Uganda. And that one, I give a pat on the back for the government. Has it not worked? Yes, it has failed us in one way or another. Not because our law is weak, our law is okay. But our law is, our enforcement officers are not sufficiently funded. This law does not in any way give any specific allocation of our national cake to investigations and to support in everything else. They have to look for the financing under CID and other budgets that are already overstrained.
Cut here and there.
Yes, find a way. It's everyday work. It's investigation that's happening. Not realizing that this we are looking at is now a special issue where you're trying to do immediate rescue. 2, it is not cheap. It is not cheap to have the proper investigation, have it from the beginning to the end. And like she has explained to you, there's investigation, but there is also psychosocial support. The most expensive bit is the fact that 2 things. If it is internal, that if it is with a child, it is not easy that the child will immediately open up to you. It can take months and months. And as you're doing that, the police need to keep this child somewhere safe. not back with the perpetrators who can change their mindset and everything. Now, to keep that child is expensive. It is not cheap. I mean, the children nowadays are not cheap. The education, the food and everything, it is hard. It is expensive. 2, if it is a cross-border, the whole essence of working together with the cross-border people, flying there to do the investigations, work together, the different jurisdiction that exists. All these are complications that are there that the law does not comfortably, adequately provide sufficient support towards its execution. So in its sense, in its write-up, it is good. But in its actionability, in terms of financing it, that is where we have the problem. And so what are the recommendations? What is the recommendation I'll give there? For now, the law is good. It is beginning to work, but we need to finance. We need to give the officers the financing they need. We need to give the DPP the support they need so that we can get these perpetrators arrested. Some of these perpetrators run out of the country, and it is hard to then pursue them and prosecute them. There's a lot of collaboration that needs to work. I mean, there's quite a lot in there that needs to, but the major thing is budget allocation. 2, we have also still had many of the officers trained, and I think as we speak right now, all CID officers countrywide.
Yeah, the biggest percentage, you have had several trainings in the area of human trafficking, because remember we have now a specialized department to handle cases of trafficking.
Yes.
Even DPP also put in place a specialized division to handle cases of trafficking. So this shows how the government recognizes the gravity of these offenses, that it even have specialized units, specialized officers who have been trained to investigate these cases. Remember, these cases are victim-centered. The way you investigate a robbery case is not the way you want to investigate a case of trafficking.
Yes.
Because this case needs you to first even be an officer to identify a person that is a victim. Remember, these people don't even know that they are victims. So it takes a whole lot of a trained officer to identify that this is a victim of trafficking. And after identifying, what are the immediate needs? Like in a robbery case, you would rush into statement. I need a statement, I'm going to visit the scene. But if a victim of trafficking, you first need to do needs assessment. What are the needs? Is it investigations? Is it medical? Is it psychosocial? Is it clothing? Is it feeding? So you really need to first look at the person as a whole. Remember, in this case, actually, if I can say, the major exhibit we have is a human being. We are not having a storynica. We are having a person, and a person comes with a list of needs to handle. And if you don't handle this person so well, you're likely to lose at the end. You're likely to give the prosecution hard time because the person will be not cooperative. He will not cooperate.
All right.
So to cooperate, you really need to first handle them well, identify their needs, then investigate their cases, update them, bring in partners who can provide what you cannot. Because as police, you cannot provide everything.
So as the police, what would you want to be able to do your work properly? Tell the public out there. There could be people who can support you beyond the provisions that the government can make.
No, as police, all I think I would need is cooperation.
Only?
There are many, but cooperation. And of course, resources are also limited. You see?
How many are you in this effort? How many? Do you have a department that deal with trafficking in persons, or is it a general crime?
No, it's not a general crime. There's a department at CID headquarters, and we have desks at each divisions that handle SGBV. We normally combine because SGBV and trafficking, you find that the most victims are children and women.
Is that the family?
No,
the family.
That is child and family protection
That's
unit.
different from this
but
one.
But this is SGBV and trafficking. These are for sexual offenses, defilement, rape, trafficking of children, child abuse. So this is a department that handle those kind of cases, and so you find that even the officers who are there are trained to specifically handle these cases. So you find that you have, of course, challenges. You've always, like Damon said, some of these cases are transnational and they need a lot of resources, but still the government is committed to provide but like it is not enough, because there are also several cases. It's not only the only offense we are looking at, but being that these are children, they are vulnerable because of their size, because of their age. These are children who people cannot even decide who to stay in their house. You know, you're defiled within your house, but even you can't talk. Someone is threatening you, and you have no right even to say that I don't want uncle so and so in our home, and you can't talk. So they even have no right. They just dictate, you go here, come here, do this. So because of that vulnerability around, so there are a lot of efforts. We even have a shelter at CID quarter, by the way. Our police doesn't own shelters. It is not supposed to operate shelters. But because of the need, we ended up having a temporary shelter. It is a transit. Like when we rescued this child, let us not keep in cells. Initially, you would rescue. You have not paid this child, and now you're also at the verge of losing this child from the police. So some people would be like, maybe I can also keep this child in the custody, or this victim. But remember, now you're even traumatizing them more. By the time you want to get evidence, this person would already be annoyed because you treated her as a suspect. Right. So you can't be like, for you a victim. So now we even have a temporary safe space at CID quarter. When we rescue, you can be there like for 3-4 days as we are looking for a more suitable solution. Can we get an NGO to keep this child? Can we get, what are the needs? Which NGO provide education? Can we trace for the parents? So as we do that, we have at least a safer space at CID quarters where we can keep this child as we do all that.
All right, we have feedback from the listener, and I'll begin with this comment that comes in from Lydia Buite, who is from Platform for Labour Action. She actually asks me, Kenneth, and she says, Kenneth, don't deny. Are you sure you have never given children on the street something? And my response to her was, that was about 10 years ago, and I stopped. And then she says her recommendation is the public should also stop buying from children. That way, we shall make using children non-profitable. And Damon, this brings me to the bylaw, which was passed by Kampala, Capital City Authority, in which it was said that if you're found to give a child on the street a gift, food or money, you will be held liable. And also, she brings in this aspect of these children who are vending eggs, bananas. Why is it not easy for the police actually to track them down to the person to whom they are remitting this money? Let's get response to this thing. What happened to the bylaw? And you as the police, why don't you track down these children to the point where they're remitting the money? Damon.
The bylaw exists. I think it's a matter of implementation that is failing us. I think the key thing we have at hand is the fact that there are some people who have actually been prosecuted on this bylaw, and we have had some wins. You had Afande Nusra talk about the Karamoja parents, and some of them have actually been prosecuted on that. And you see that prosecution is by Kampala City Council, and that is before they have done investigations. So that is at that point of you have been caught with this child and it's child neglect and you're punished. But when the police and the DPP finish the investigations and confirm it is a case, they will also take it to court. And so that in its own way has proved to push away the aspect. But we still have citizens who have a good heart but are misplacing their giving. Instead, they're facilitating trafficking in persons.
All right, Afande, tracking down these children to the people who are benefiting from their cheap labor.
Like I told you, Kenneth, we have some cases where we have tracked down these children and we have arrested the beneficiaries. Because as you know, the offense of trafficking, it is financially motivated. So when we do these cases, we carry out financial investigations and we target the beneficiary. Who is benefiting from this child's exploitation? Who is exploiting? Who is benefiting from this child being on the street? Who is benefiting from ABCD? So we have cases that we are handling, but like Damon put it right, that as you're planning, the traffickers are equally planning. So they also, it is an evolving crime. The trends keep on changing, but we are not sitting. We keep on following up these cases, and as we also do community sensitization, so as well urge to the public, because now these people also stay in their communities. The police officer will not be everywhere. But in your communities, even because when you go to rescue these children, you find that they are having neighbors. Children have been confined in a house, they are selling eggs. When we do those operations and we follow up, you will rescue many children, and neighbors will be telling us, yes, these children stay here, they go very early in the morning, they come back in the late hours, but no one has made a report. So maybe I also urge the public to always also share such kind of information when they also see the indicators. Such indicators like children are working at night, they're working long hours, the child is supposed to be in school and they are not in school, the child is being beaten, the child is always there miserable, poor dressing, non-feeding. They should always give this information. There are people who usually call and tell you, Fande Nusra, I have my neighbor here, but they brought a girl from the village. They beat her. She's always outside in the late. She washes clothes. She's young. She's tiny. She keeps the baby. She does ABCD. I'll be like, okay, just give me the directions. I always go there with that, of course, the team of other officers, the territorial police, and we always rescue these children. So I maybe urge the public to always also equally, as they also urge us to track. As we are doing it, let's also partner with us, because among the 4 Ps, there's partnership.
Do you have a toll-free line that they can reach you out on?
Yes. We have, I can share, we have a toll-free. It is for GBV and equality. So it is based at police headquarters. It is 0800 199195.
If you can repeat the number again.
0800 199195.
All right, we have a comment coming in from Esther who says, good evening, Kenneth. I need a panelist to help me draw distinction between trafficking for serial purpose and defilement. Because nowadays, every serial case involving a child is charged under trafficking. Isn't this duplicity in legislation? She thinks there's duplicity in legislation there. We have a comment coming in from Andrew Ariko says, sometimes trafficking can be accepted when it comes to the early days of courtship, and ladies do this a lot, but only become bad when love evaporates, and now they run to police. Does police dig deeper before according a man a harsh sort of punishment or something like that? That's a record there with that comment. We have another comment coming in from another listener here who says, good evening, Anderson and Spectrum panelists. Cases of human trafficking are basically involving highly politically connected people, and as such, even if they are apprehended, they will always get off the hook of the law. Secondly, the weaker laws of the land makes it easier for the perpetrators to abuse it. Some involve lawyers to take them through, citing the loopholes in the law, and before you know it, a lucrative business which also breeds corruption, because the perpetrators are not only connected but also have money. The law enforcers have a lot ahead of them and also strengthen punitive measures to the culprits. That's a comment coming from Kamugo Fred Keta, who is listening in from Kira municipality. Well, those are some of the comments that are coming in. We have also had stories of actually children being trafficked for organ harvesting. We used to hear a lot about human sacrifice, but now we even hear about organ harvesting. Children are taken and the organs are harvested, and some people find a way of actually leaving the country with them. Have you heard about these kind of things as you respond to some of these comments? Damon, I'll begin with you.
Many of those comments are more for our CID officer here, who is an expert at them. But let me just put it, and the comment by, I think that was Fred, saying that our laws are weak. Uganda's laws are usually not weak. You agree with me, Kenneth? Our laws are not usually weak. Our problem is the implementation of the laws. If the law is implemented to its best, it can actually do us good. And we have seen it from even the little that we have, with even no financial allocation with this PTIP Act, and with just empowering the police to understand what the law says, how they can charge on these issues. We have seen tremendous improvement. We have seen great wins in the fight against trafficking in persons. And we have seen more cases being reported. Police is better reporting. Police is better preparing the cases, and are better passing them on. The other issue that comes into play Kenneth is around the issue of saying that the law is not working, people are in powerful places and all that. People are in powerful places and all that. That is okay. But for us in the places where we are, what can we do to ensure we can protect? Let us go back to the gatekeeping. The gatekeeping can help us. Let's create an alarm. They've given us the helpline. They've given us the everything. Let's continue. Let's not get tired. Let's not get tired reporting for the sake of the children who are being exploited. We will continue to pursue them. We will use all the tactics. We'll use every advocacy arm we have. By you even coming up and sharing this is good, but take a step further and also share the what we call the whistleblowers. Whistleblow to police. Police will take it on and carry on investigation. Police does not need full information. They just need just suspicion, and that is why, Kenneth, you can be prosecuted for just because you knew and you did not report.
All right.
You can be prosecuted. So let's just do our role.
All right.
Protect, report, and come into play.
Well, Afande Kemigisha, your closing remarks and response to some of these comments that have come from the listener.
Yeah, okay. If maybe I can respond to the one who said that defilement, that duplicity, it's not. It is cases of defilement are very clear, but maybe what brings in the confusion, it is because maybe sometimes the purpose is sexual exploitation. But when you look at the cases of TIP, you don't even need to have sexual intercourse for it to be considered to be a case of trafficking. We look at the purpose.
Circumstances.
At the purpose. What was the purpose? For example, we have some cultures where you get the marry off young children, okay? For exchange, they get them, maybe they feed them on milk, they grow fat, then they're like, this is an adult. Then they arrange the function and they are ready for marriage. When we get about this case, that is a case of trafficking. We don't need to wait for a sexual act to occur. All right. We don't need this child to be exploited so that we come in. If we can prove that, of course, there was an act, there was a purpose. This child, people have exchanged the cows, they are preparing, there was a function, we have photos. So the PTP Act looks at the purpose.
The purpose.
What was the purpose?
All right.
The purpose was sexual exploitation. If I can give an example of a case of defilement.
Very quickly.
Maybe a 19-year-old and a 17 are in love. They have sexual intercourse. That is defilement if the case is reported. But now imagine this is a 17 and a 19, but this child is lured, brought from their home. Maybe she's going to fetch water. She's abducted, taken to another place, sexually abused.
All right.
We can't say defilement. That is aggravated trafficking in children.
All right. With that, yes. I must thank you so much, Mr. Damon Wamara and Afande Superintendent Nusra Kemigisha for actually joining us this evening to look at this particular issue. Well, members of the public, watch out for the signs. Do not fall for people who are promising so much, especially when it comes to children. Be careful who you hand over your children to. Well, I've been your host, Kenneth Lukwago Anderson. Up next, we have the news in English with Miss Josephine Dagano. Thereafter, we'll have the Soul Train with BB Junior.